Grau came away the winner last season despite having a single win compared to Dwyer's 3. But knowing consistency is key, today's opening round creates a chance for everyone to kick things off on the right foot. That'll be tough at a challenging circuit like Oulton Park, but we'll see who handles it best as we get ready to watch round 1 of the Turn 2.0 Flying Huskies, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Oulton Park is amongst Britain's classic racing venues with lots of fantastic history in motorsports. Let's head to our track guide to learn more about it. Welcome to Oulton Park Circuit. This British track to the southeast of Liverpool is a staple in the UK club racing scene, but has also hosted series as high level as Formula One a few times. At least, with a small asterisk next to those events since they were non-championship rounds. The history and the lore of the venue is as unique as the layout itself. But that layout is more than just the international circuit this place is known for. An incredible 8 different versions can be run, but they all range between 1.5 to 2.5 miles in length. It's not exactly a long lap around here. What it lacks in that realm, it more than makes up for in bumps and hills. On top of that, Oulton Park offers some very fast corners, so you certainly won't get bored. Turns like Island Bend, Knickerbrook, and Druids can be utterly fearsome depending on which chicanes are at it. But even the slower corners often involve blind crests or kinked entries, making passing a very difficult prospect. In modern day, the place is mainly visited by touring cars, GT cars, motorcycles, and Formula 3. But here on iRacing, it's quite popular with the vintage community. Needless to say, this is a track that carries on the British tradition of fast, old-school style circuits that challenge and thrill drivers. It'll no doubt be a blast for both our competitors and fans today. Well, DJ, this is a track that sees the F3 cars in real life as it's part of the ladder for many a hopeful in the open wheel and various racing series over on across the pond. But tell us how it's going to handle for these cars specifically.
Well, Joe, it'll handle well. As you said, these F3 cars actually do suit this track very well, but they suit it well for hot lapping. This is a very narrow circuit, especially compared to the big, wide open Formula One style circuits that we saw these guys on last season. So I think overtaking is going to be at an absolute premium around here. And instead, this is going to be a race about damage mitigation. You've just got to minimize those mistakes and try not to do anything to send you offline, because if you get sent offline, you are right into the grass, and we've seen it time and time again in these F3s, a little bit onto the grass, and that's going to send you in a spin. Now, don't worry, there are a couple places we could see some good overtaking get done. Going into Show Oil's corner, that hairpin at the start of the second sector of the circuit, that's a good opportunity to get things done. I also think we may see an overtake or two, or maybe a look going into Knickerbrook, or maybe even to Lodge Corner before we get onto the main straightaway. But really and truly, the name of the game out of here, Joe, is just keeping all 4 tires on the black stuff.
It's easier said than done. But one thing we do want to say is talk about our sponsors, including Norsled. Norsled is a nonprofit animal welfare organization dedicated to rescuing, rehabilitating, and finding homes for unwanted, abandoned, and abused husky dogs. Today, every Flying Husky Racing track day or car event benefits Norsled with a portion of the proceeds donated to them. Even if you can't adopt, you can still help and ensure care for these amazing animals through your support. Save a Husky. For more information, contact Todd Curtis through email at todd@flyinghusky.racing.
Flying Husky Racing is a car club based in the Pacific Northwest that delivers premium track days and car events for automotive enthusiasts. FHR is dedicated to safety, development, and building community among its members and participants. Find out more on the web at flyinghusky.racing. Flying Husky Racing. Track days are the best days.
It's also brought to you by Turn 2.0 Drivers Club, which is a car club based in Northern California and founded in April of 2020. The club runs approximately 20 private days a year at Sonoma Raceway in Thunder Hill. It was created as a private, exclusive membership club designed for and by race car, track day, and racing enthusiasts that share like-minded values. These include safety first, camaraderie, fairness, diverse interests, love of cars, and a desire to learn and grow as drivers on and off the track. Have fun, be safe, and go faster.
And finally, tonight's race is brought to you by VSRS Motorsports. They're a multi-purpose consulting business focusing on motorsports marketing and digital media space, as well as exotic, historic, and race car sales and other experiential events for cars enthusiasts. Contact Rick Shelton to learn more about VSRS. Cool people, cool cars, cool events.
With that out of the way, we have our championship points as they ended last season. And up at the top of those, Kurt Pansgrau, as I mentioned, came away with it all, ahead of Dan Dwyer and Rick Sheldon, who were only split by a single point in the end. Sheldon even won last season. He's got to be at least a little bit miffed that he couldn't finish one more up the order after that. But David Anderson took fourth, and Todd Curtis rounded out your top five after all of the rounds from last time out. What about today's race details? What do the drivers have up against them?
Well, Joe, today we're going to be running the We Made It to Season 2 kickoff race in those Dallara F3s like we talked about in the intro. Drivers are currently out on track right now for a 15-minute qualifying session, and where they are all out trying to set their best times, all cars out on circuit at the same time. That'll be followed by then a 25-minute race that will see these guys put the cars to the absolute limit. Now, this is crucial. There is a faster pair available if they get off into the barriers. So that can be a very crucial thing. We've seen guys take that faster pair and come back and get very close to the podium.
Right now in that qualifying, Kurt Pansgrau actually holds the pole position, and by half a second over Rick Sheldon. Now, during the warm-up, they were split by less than a tenth of a second. In fact, it was just 1/100th between them. So they looked very tight in that sense, but they've spread apart a little bit now as Kurt Pansgrau comes across the start-finish line one more time. But that lap's not going to count for him, unfortunately. The laps do go by quite quick here at just over 80 seconds to try and put one down. So we look now at Rick Sheldon in the 63, who comes around Lodge and up over Deer Leap onto the front stretch. Let's see if this is faster than a 19.3. No, 19.6, just a few tenths off of his quickest.
Well, and Joe, you saw there as Rick was making around the final parts of this circuit and then down again here through Denton's and down to the Cascades. We watch Hayden Fisher crossing over the line to improve his time. It is one of the crucial things to keep in mind around this circuit, and that is the elevation change. There is a lot of undulation up and down over the course of the circuit. It can really, really throw the balance off of these cars. We ride on board here on the nose of Dan Dwyer, and you get a great sense of that.
Especially right here, coming over Lodge, and then they call it Deer Leap. This last corner, you'll see why, as really comes across at high speed as he comes to the line. His last one at 19.6 is still going to remain his quickest, and he stays in third because of that. He's about 7 tenths off of our pole time, which again is still held by this man, Kurt Pansgrau. And unfortunately, another lap that is not going to count. Easy to catch off tracks at a couple spots, but not everywhere. There's certainly places where you can get away with it, DJ, and places where you absolutely cannot.
Exactly, and one of those places we see Todd Curtis making his way through that first corner. Oh, that's a big off there from Rick Sheldon in the background, I believe, as we see Hollers coming across the line. One of the areas you can push a little bit is this first corner, Old Halls Corner. That is a very, very place you want to try to extend as much momentum as humanly possible and try to get over, but you don't want to take too much of that curve because, like I said, that sends you into the grass.
Watching Fisher. Let's see how he takes that first corner from on board. That lap unfortunately did not count for him. Nice and tight, a little bit off the apex, but still looks good. He's currently chasing behind the car of, I believe that is, trying to figure out who that is. That actually looked like Fisher there in front of him. As the session wraps up, they should be able to finish their hot laps here, though, since it is an open session. And I think Kurt Pansgrau, well, he was going to take the checkered flag, but he just had an off, so that one's not going to count for him. Dave Anderson is going to be the next one in the 62.
Dave is currently down in fourth, so let's see what he can do. The California driver making his way through here. You see that little bit of mini undulation, as it were, working his way down the hill now. Ooh, that's an off.
Yeah, that lap's not going to count for him either. So Dave Hollers has a chance to move himself out of last on the field in this qualifying session, sits in ninth, has to make up 2.7 seconds. So it's going to take a really big jump for the 7.69 as he crosses the line. Oh, that one doesn't count for him either. Rick Sheldon doesn't improve with that 19.9, so he'll stay put. Same thing with Dave Anderson, who just came across. Of course, we saw him go off. A 1:21 flat is Donald Gagne with his best, and that'll put him up into sixth.
And then here comes Dwyer. Yeah, he's slowing down there, so let's keep an eye to see Kurt Pansgrau. We said he had an off, but looks like he's just practicing a hot lap here.
Yeah, I think that is it for everybody who's able to set a fast one. So our grid is now set of 9 cars that are going to take place in this 25-minute race out here today at what is an incredibly difficult circuit, but should be a fun one to watch. And these mid-tier open-wheel cars, which certainly tests the young up-and-comers in the world of open-wheel racing here across the ponds. So it's the last seconds tick down. Looking forward to the season kicking off. And don't forget that hashtag track days are the best days if you want to get involved in the social media conversation here with the Turn 2.0 Flying Huskies. Looks like on the top of the board here today, it is going to be Kurt Pansgrau on the pole. Rick Sheldon will start in second place with Dan Dwyer starting in P3. To his outside, it'll be Dave Anderson, and the first half of the field is split by Matthew Escajeda.
Donald Gagne's going to be lining up to the outside there of row 3, and behind him it'll be Todd Curtis in 7th and Hayden Fisher in 8th, and then bringing up the back of the field will be Dave Hollers in 9th.
Drivers lining up behind the Mustang pace car here, getting ready to go. Don't have to do a full pace lap here. They'll start just before they get into Druids, and then a couple corners before they take off. Actually, pretty decent conditions here this morning, just before noon, actually, virtual standard time. 85 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface, so shouldn't be too hot, shouldn't be too cold.
Exactly, Joe. It's right in that Goldilocks zone that we talked about, but with just as much of a sweeping corner that Old Hall, that first corner is, I think drivers are going to have to be a little cognizant, maybe back off of the tires a little bit and hope that they come into full tire life by the time they get to Shell Oils.
Now, track position probably going to be key today, so that qualifying session could have been decisive for some of our drivers, depending on what kind of mistakes they can avoid. You heard DJ talking about the difficulties in overtaking at this track as they work their way through the double apexer of Druids and start to head towards Lodge, the final braking zone of the track. Wondering what that's going to mean for those in the back. I mean, do you try and stay patient and hope for those mistakes, or do you really try and attack here today, DJ?
I really think it is the former, Joe. It is all going to be about patience and just hope that those guys in front of you make a mistake, get into the final minutes. Maybe you get a little bit more aggressive, but certainly not at the start.
All right, over the hill and through the valley. As here they come, green flag is out, and it's a slow start from Pansgrau. Up on around his outside, Rick Sheldon already taking the lead as they plunge down into Old Hall, and we've already got a spin in the back, some contact, unfortunately, between Gagne, Fisher, who's on his lid, and Escajeda.
And that's going to take out some guys early. They're going to be taking full advantage of that faster pair. But up front, Rick Sheldon with the mega start to get this up and going, pulling out a good little gap here over Rick Sheldon.
So Rick taking it down into Shell Oil at the front of the field. Remember, he won the final race of the season back in California. Let's see if he can make it back-to-back, spreading across these 2 seasons. And coming up towards Knickerbrook, this is going to be a mighty corner with cold tires.
It is indeed. Let's see how the front runners handle this. Everybody flicking the car in there nice and easy. Oh, and it's Pansgrow, and I think that's Anderson behind, both having a mistake.
Anderson was off, and he's slow, but he kept the car together. Unfortunately, it looks like Pansgrouse turned it around, but thankfully did not hit the wall. Let's take a look at the replay. He's very lucky. The barriers are awful close at this corner.
Yeah, Joe, and that right there is a classic case of cold tires, just not enough grip onto the asphalt of the track, and the car just goes once around.
And our leader spun. Rick Sheldon spun in Lodge and has handed the lead over to Dwyer. Right during that replay, we're going to take another look at it as the 63, there you see it, all on his own, no pressure from behind, and he chucks it off into the runoff. He gets going, but in fourth.
Just overcooks it going in there, and now we're going to focus back up on our new leader, the hot shoe from earlier in last season, Dan Dwyer.
Yeah, started off very strong, but then unfortunately kind of fell away towards the latter half of the season. Took 3 in a row in the first 3 races. Is he going to do similarly this season? He's set up to do so right now, but he's got 0.8 of a second back to Dave Anderson, who would have had that lead if he didn't go off the track at this coming quarter, Knickerbrook.
He would have. Let's see if he's able to collect it a little bit better through there. Yeah, very, very cautious there. You see he's not taking the full width of the track there. I think he's a little bit gun shy. That may have cost him, let's call it a 0.5 of a second here, but still keeping it relatively close up to Dwyer.
Now, behind them, Todd Curtis has gained a bunch of positions with all the attrition that's happened in front of him. He's gone from 7th to 3rd, but the out of position Rick Sheldon has already caught up to him and is attacking.
Well, Joe, this is going to be the first test of how well somebody's really going to be able to get the overtake done. Watching on board here from Todd Curtis as they get ready to go into that first corner. Old Hall, very tricky, both able to pilot it out okay, but you see all the pressure that Sheldon is starting to apply.
Sticking right with him in case he does get a mistake out of the 72. As they come out of Cascades, very difficult corner. You can see just dipping a wheel off. Unfortunately, Todd Curtis, that mistake opens the door too wide through Island Bend. Doesn't work, and they bang wheels. Curtis goes off. I don't think that car is getting slowed down in time, and he smacks into the wall in a big way. He's going to have to take a tow.
Oh, that is such a heartbreak there for Curtis, who really just had nowhere to go. Sheldon putting his car in exactly the right position. Now he's going to set his eyes up the road. Those are all 3 of your leaders in the same shot. Dwyer only about 1 second ahead of Anderson, but Sheldon coming on like a train with a full head of steam.
And Anderson gained a little bit of time on Dwyer earlier. He had it down to about 0.4 of a second briefly, but he seems to have dropped off now as Dwyer's responded and dealing with the pressure well. We're already 5 minutes into this race as they come out of the final corner. Ooh, down to 0.8 of a second. Anderson handling Lodge much better.
Yeah, Joe, I think that may be a little bit of a case of Dan Dwyer just trying to be as soft as possible around here. Ooh, lots of steering in there put in for Anderson. I think that's a result of just a little bit of oversteer for the driver of the number 62. Good job there, though, through Cascade. Trying to catch up. He's got that gap back down to about 0.7 of a second.
So whatever messed him up before, he's reeling it back in as we watch from on board, looking ahead at Dan Dwyer. They come out of Shell Oil. The exit of this corner, oh so critical. And then fly back towards Knickerbrook once again. This is the old version without the chicanes like they tend to race here in modern times.
Exactly. Certainly gives this circuit a much more old school vibe, and you can really feel that there as they go through. Druids working their way up towards Lodge. The gap relatively stable here at about 8.5 of a second.
Coming off of Druids. Ooh, that was a great run from Anderson that time. He halved it. It's down to 0.4 of a second, and he's looking great on the brakes as he gains another 1/10. Oh, both of them spinning the wheels off the corner. They're getting desperate.
They really are. A little bit of synchronized sliding there from Anderson and Dwyer. That gap now ballooning back out to 1.2 seconds.
But if they keep making mistakes like that, let's not forget, there's Rick Sheldon in the background in that red and white number 63. He's got it down to 1.5 seconds. I'm sure he's reveling in more mistakes like that as all three of our leaders in the same shot fly towards Shell Oil.
And Joe, there's another thing that's going to be sticking in these guys' minds, and that is the fact that Kurt Pansgrau has put in the fastest lap of the race about the past 5 laps in a row. Now, he's about 6 seconds off the back of Sheldon, but he is coming on.
Wow. Yeah, and his fastest lap is more than a full second quicker than our overall leader right now, and a half second faster than Rick Sheldon ahead of him in third. So he's got the bit between his teeth, and he's seeing if he can still claim a victory in this race.
Yeah, I think certainly do not count Pansgrau out of this now that those tires are up to temperature. He's going to be going hard, but we're going to jump back here in the field.
Our drivers who were involved in the wreck at the opening did come in, take their spare car. They're back out and running. Fisher's being chased by Escajeda. These are 2 of our newcomers that need to kind of get their feet wet here and get used to the dynamic of the racing in this series. So far, obviously having a bit of a rude introduction.
Well, and we've seen from drivers across any series that we cover, Joe, that can happen. You just sometimes get in your head a little bit coming into the first corner, but I have a lot of respect for these guys getting back out onto the track and just putting in these fast laps and going for what they can. It'll really help build their confidence as the season goes along, and I think will really have a good effect when they go into race 2.
Matthew trailing by about a second right now as they come through Cascades, past the ponds nearby, off to the left-hand side. Very scenic track, as I think something has happened to Curtis. He's gone off in Cascades and lost a position to Gagne.
All right, so here is the look of it, and there you see, it's that same place that he got bumped off a little bit early in that contact with Rick Sheldon, just carried a little bit too much speed into the corner, locked the rear brakes, and that sent him spinning wide.
Let's head back to that battle for the lead, because not only has Anderson closed it down to 7/10 behind Dwyer, but look at Sheldon, 9/10 of a second. We're going to watch from on board. DJ, talk us through a lap and what it takes to try and drive this track fast.
It's a lot of confidence there. You see chucking that car into that right-hander, getting back onto the power, making sure it doesn't go too wide. Now you've got to line up here, stick to the right of the road, and take a late apex in here through Cascades to try to maximize momentum. Now it's straight onto the power. You're going to be coming up here into Island Bend. This is a flat-out corner for the most part. Those tires screaming out for all that they're worth. Now this is the hardest braking zone of the track. Hard down. It's a long, long hairpin. You feel like you want to get on the throttle a lot earlier than you need to, but there you get onto it, and now you're onto the long back straight. Now you're going to crest over the hill here, and you're going to start setting yourself up for Knickerbrook. Now this is a very tricky corner. Like we said, it's a double apex, or a little bit of the way it's taken there. You can see it feels like it the way that that car breaks away. Now 2 more braking zones on this single lap. Now this is the true double apex, right-hander of Druids. There you go. Let the car out, diamond the corner off, get hard onto the power, fight against the elevation change as it starts to go, and then here you go, down into Lodge. The track's going to break away from you, so you've got to be very careful not to spin the tires, and there you go, crest back over the hill, line it back up for the straight, and that is a lap.
Sheldon cut it down to 6/10 with that one, so 2/10 faster than Dave Anderson. But credit to all 3 of them. They seem to have settled into a rhythm, even if it is a reverse order of fastest maybe at the back of this trio coming off of Cascades. And they head once again towards Island Bend. That black number 1 looking for his 4th victory here. And as they take it around that banked hairpin, all trying to get the power down, none of them really finding much advantage. At first, it looked like they were gaining time on one another, but it almost looks like it's stalled out.
Well, Joe, that's not completely unsurprising. You know, these F3 cars, they're not the massive downforce generators that, say, today's modern Formula One cars are, but those wings do create a little bit of dirty air, and especially at a track like this, which is mainly, when you're braking down to 3rd or 4th gear corners, fast, medium to high speed corners, that really upsets the air, and it makes these cars a lot harder to handle. So to circuit like this, that dirty air, very, very hard to follow.
Tiny little lockup from Dwyer, but it's a mistake off the corner from Anderson that opens the door. Spins the wheels up, and Rick Sheldon already pokes his nose to the inside and then decides better of it. Into Old Hall. He sets the fastest lap of the race that time by, however. He is on it. I'm surprised he didn't take the opportunity when it started to appear.
I'm a little bit surprised as well, but Kurt Pansgraw saying, no, I want that fast lap, and resetting it by about 1/10 of a second faster than Sheldon. So Pansgraw continuing to come on like a freight train. There you see, though, Sheldon closing in more on Anderson. A little bit more of a lockup in front there.
He's got it down to 0.2 of a second. He'll get the slipstream as the 62 can see in his mirrors. He'll creep closer and closer. Look at him weave across the track a little bit here. Rick Sheldon showing his nose down to the inside. I don't think a pass is happening here, though. Comes back to the racing line. Both of them through, but much better exit for the 63 as he approaches quickly behind. He's going to run out of track. They hit Druids. Not often you see passes into here. Can he maybe, DJ, set something up for Lodge?
I think he got off his apex a little bit there, and that's going to set him up. He's not going to be able to make the pass here, but he's doing exactly what he needs to do. Thought about making the pass.
Oh! Spins it, coming off the corner. Just got too greedy, and there goes Pansgraw. That's third place for him. We're going to watch the replay and see what exactly happened.
I think this was just a little bit too focused on the car up ahead and not focused on the road. There, heavy braking, dives it in a little off apex. And Joe, that's a little bit of that elevation change coming out to bite Sheldon there. I think he got onto the power too early, and the way the track was breaking away from him just spun the tires.
So Kurt Pansgraw now up into third, has 4.5 seconds to make up to get to Dave Anderson. He's starting to run out of time here. We're down to 12 minutes to go. We're past halfway in this race. And though he is faster, the front runners do seem to be responding somewhat. We're taking another glance at 6 now. A lap down, but still important points on hold for Escajeda and Fisher.
Exactly, and they're going to want to keep going, and I've got to give some massive credit here to Hayden Fisher, just being able to keep up behind Escajeda, and rest assured, Escajeda is going to be glancing in his rearview mirror, and this is exactly what Fisher needs to do to maybe cause another mistake.
Falls back a little bit, though. It was 0.6 of a second. Now it's up to 0.9 between the 2 and the 5 as we look over the shoulder of the newcomer, Hayden Fisher. See the car just bouncing around over this old narrow circuit, having to really try and spot your apexes carefully. So many of them blind as there's crooked braking zones galore in this track. Now down into the Lodge corner and off the apex for the number 2. Hands some of that time back. It's down to 0.6 of a second.
Exactly, and those are just those mistakes that I was talking about Fisher trying to pressure Escajeda into. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big off track, but if he is glancing in his rearview mirror and maybe misses the braking zone by a couple of feet, that is just enough to do it.
Down to 0.4 of a second now. Hayden's looking strong at this stage in the race, chipping away. Can he get within arm's length, or will the dirty air cost him too much to really be able to attack? It certainly seemed to caused a lot of woe for our top 3 earlier. Off of the hairpin, he keeps it. Oh no, he doesn't keep it at 0.4. It falls back to 0.8 of a second. That seems to be a bit of an Achilles heel for him.
Yeah, I think there, Joe, it was a combination of two things. He looked a little late getting onto the power. That's a little bit of cautious driving. And then I think he may have rode up on the curbs on the inside ever so slightly.
Our leaders are crossing the line yet again. Dwyer with a 19.7. Anderson, 19.4. Fantastic lap, his personal best, and he just went off right after that. So all the time that maybe he gained over Pansgraw has gone away, because Pansgraw actually ran a 19.5 that time by. So Anderson was mildly quicker, but all that gained, and he takes 2 steps backwards.
Exactly, and that's just what Oulton Park can do to you if you are not constantly on your game. But Dave Anderson, lock up again, coming down into that hairpin. We've seen him do that a couple of times.
Yeah, and Dwyer's locked him up as well a few times around this race. Seems like the driver's struggling with the grip. It's not, again, too terribly hot, even though it has increased slightly. 88 Fahrenheit on the surface now compared to the 82 that we saw when the green dropped. But 9 minutes left to go, and it's just past noon here in England. The one sending it down through Druids and looking very tidy, keeping Anderson at that 1 second behind. Pansgrau's cut it down to about 3.7 seconds. Let's take a look at the times now as they come across.
All right, let's see what they have. Dan Dwyer on that last lap putting it at 19.9. Anderson slow with that lockup that we said. That was a 1:21. Pansgrau looking to come across the line there with a 19.4. So Pansgrau slow.
No, Pansgrau fast. Anderson was a 20.1, Dwyer a 19.9. Pansgrau gained on both of them. So he's got it down to 3.8 seconds. So if he can do 0.4 per lap, is that going to be enough? I hate to try and do math here on air, but that feels like it's going to be awful tight watching from his perspective. And poor Dave Hollers, who has been running in 5th, just had an off himself. I think this is another victim for Knickerbrook.
Yeah, I think it is indeed there, Joe. And by my calculations with Pansgrau, if he keeps up this pace, he will be right onto the back of Dave Anderson by the time this ends. Now, the one caveat with that is not taking into account any draft he may get, which could gain him some very serious time down these long straights.
Speaking of gaining time, Anderson has responded. He's got it down to 0.5 of a second behind Dwyer. This time by Dwyer with a 19.5, Anderson with a 19.4. He's back on the pace. Can he keep it tidy this time? He does go a little wide, but that one looked decent. Pansgrau, though, 19.6. Pansgrau was slower than Anderson.
Yeah, but Rick Sheldon wasn't there putting in a 19.2. He's got that gap between him and Pansgrau down to about 3.2 seconds as they run. So if Pansgrau continues to run a little bit slow here, maybe makes a mistake or two, we may see a battle for the last step of the podium.
Now, what a wild race. Whoa, and somebody off there. Not sure who that was.
It was Hollers, Joe. Dave Hollers.
Again for a second one. So, unfortunately, no replay of that, but he spun it off of Shell Oil. Let's go back to what is now a battle for 5th because of the mistake from Hollers. Escajeda gains a position, so does Fisher, but Fisher's trying to make it 2.
He is indeed. Let's see how he does through this hairpin again. Very wide entry, saw a little bit of lockup there. And again, just not getting down onto the power well enough to get him a good run on Escajeda. I've got to say, if Hayden can just get that power down right, I think he's got a real shot at moving himself up to 5th.
It's been tantalizingly close. If he, like you said, can, as he's really pushing limits. It looked like 2 wheels off into the dirt through Knickerbrook, but he holds it together as they come through Druid. Still not within reach, unfortunately.
Yeah, just tantalizingly close. It looks like Hayden's just a lot better through the sort of gutsy corners that you've got to do, the fast 3rd, 4th gear corners, but just struggling when he gets down into the hairpin. That may seem a little counterintuitive, but I can tell you, Joe, that that's something that I struggle with in my own driving, is that the slow speed corners are the ones that catch me up.
Yeah, that's when that downforce can't help you. It's all down to your technical ability with the grip of the rubber meets the road. And coming out of Cascades one more time, one of the fastest portions of the course here as they head through Island Bend at 140 miles an hour and then slamming onto the brakes, using the banking as best they can.
And again, there just doesn't look like that Fisher's got it. But Joe, I want to bring our attention back to Kurt Pansgrau. He ran a 20.5 on that last lap. He's really struggling here.
You're right. And that means that Rick Sheldon is starting to gain on him. He's got it down to 2.5 seconds, and we've seen Rick be quick towards the end of this race. Dwyer set a personal best at a 19.491, Anderson a 19.7. Pansgrau, the first driver to break into the 18s and setting the fastest lap of the race that time. He's flying hot and cold.
I think Kurt may or may not be listening to this broadcast and heard me be a little bit down on him and just decided to respond to that. But it does bring up something crucial here. Now, tire degradation on these cars is not that big of a factor. They will normally last about 30 to 40 minutes on the tires, but keeping the heat in the correct operating range, that is very, very crucial. And what may have happened is that Pansground knew that he overcooked the tires ever so slightly. They were running a little bit hot. Maybe that 120 lap we saw from him was him just taking a lap to cool the tires a little bit.
Oh, the battle between Escajeda and Fisher has gone away. Hayden spinning out of Lodge Corner finds himself passed by Gagne, who retakes 6th place. So that one seems to have settled unless we get some sort of major incident among those three. There you see the number 5 continuing on, maybe with a little bit of a bruised ego. Our leader is still split by half a second, but now no longer concerned about being chased down from behind, as Pansgrau has started to run out of laps, I have to say. His fast and slow laps has really cost him a better opportunity at 4 seconds back. Anderson only half a second behind Dwyer. Can he get within reach? Can he attack the number 1 and try to deny him another win?
It looks like he very well might be. He was very, very strong there coming through Island Bend, but that's Anderson off into the grass.
That might be all she wrote. And that cost him an opportunity at his first broadcast win. We didn't see him at the top of the steps last season, unfortunately. Another little lockup from Dwyer, and then you kept saying it. You got it. You want to get on the power, and unfortunately for Dave, well, he wanted it a little too much.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of a dual situation there, Joe. It looked like he wasn't necessarily suffering from a lot of understeer. I think he may have just misjudged where the car was in relation to the curbs. It looks like he may have just struck the underside of the car ever so slightly, and that kind of got him to bottom out on the curb.
2 laps to go this time as they cross the line, and Dwyer finds himself with a little breathing space. Back to Dave Anderson for the first time in many laps. Kurt Pansgrau's liking this, though. He continues to put good ones down. Another 19 flat. It's almost like he does a fast one and then a slow one and then another quick one on the board. He's got it down to 1.3 seconds. Maybe he could sneak into second.
He just might. He's running out of lap time here, but at the same time, like I said earlier, Joe, as both he and Anderson lock up there a little bit coming through Shell Oil. What's going to be crucial here is if he can get this down to about 0.8 of a second, that's about where I think he'll start picking up the draft a little bit. And if he's able to suck up behind that 62 very quickly, take advantage of it and not lose too much time in dirty air, he may just be able to get a last lap pass done.
After starting on the pole, I'm sure he is eager to make up for his mistake, giving it away before we even reach the first turn. And now he sees a second within reach by about 1.2 seconds. The white flag getting ready to be waved for Dan Dwyer as he comes up and over Deer Leap, still 2 seconds ahead of Dave Anderson.
Still 2 seconds ahead, but we've seen how tricky this track is. Dan cannot rest on his laurels at this point. Works his way through the avenue.
Anderson last time in 19.7. Pansgrau 19.4. He's coming, but he's been mistake prone today. Can he hold them off, keep those gremlins at bay to manage to attack and overtake Dave Anderson on the last lap of today's race, the opening round of the Turn 2.0 Flying Huskies out of Shell Oil Corner? He's still within about 0.8 of a second, but he's not close enough that he can do something from here. He's got to hope for a disaster or really have some incredible pace in this last time around. Ahead of them, Dan Dwyer heads through Knickerbrook. He takes a very conservative line, just trying to bring this one home.
And try as he might, it looks like Pansgrau is able to get that down to half a second. He's really only got one more corner to try to do this here as they work their way through Druids. He's coming on strong, 0.3 of a second.
Just a little too far back. This would have to be an incredible dive. And yep, He's not going to be able to take it, as at the front of the field, Dan Dwyer takes the win merely a second ahead of Anderson, with Pansgrau 2 seconds back himself, 1 second back in the end. And that was our podium, all split by 1.6 seconds. Sheldon taking fourth. And then, unfortunately, it's a whole lap down to P5, as multiple drivers behind certainly had struggles here today. That's going to take us to a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results of our first round of the season, as well as driver interviews, so don't go away. Welcome back to Oulton Park. This was an exciting race, with the lead and the front runners swapping around all throughout, as the Flying Husky Racing, the Turn 2.0 Flying Husky Racing Series, sees Dan Dwyer kick off with a victory, very and eerily similar to last season. Dave Anderson chased him home, though, and finished in second, with Kurt Pansgrau finishing third. Rick Sheldon was the last one on the lead lap in fourth, and DJ, the first driver lap down was Matthew Escajeda.
Was indeed. Donald Gagne was behind him in sixth, with Hayden Fisher suffering from that late race spin to come home seventh. Todd Curtis had a couple of incidents and came home in eighth, with Dave Hollers in ninth.
Believe that will take us to our victor here today, Dan Dwyer. Dan, you started from third, but you found yourself up towards the front suddenly early in the race, but everybody kept breathing down your neck. How did you withstand that pressure?
Yeah, no, I was pleasantly surprised. To find myself in P1, but just started out kind of respecting the cold tires, and then I don't know that I was the fastest car. I don't think I was. With Dave definitely breathing down my neck, but I think whenever he'd close the distance, I'd kind of have a little mistake, and it would kind of spook him, and then I'd gain back a small delta. So I was kind of always able to keep it between, I don't know, 1 and 0.6 and never really got too much below 0.6. So I was kind of able to hold on. But yeah, definitely felt, yeah, very close.
This one feels sort of like deja vu because you started off last season very strong with 3 wins, but they dried up later in the season. Have you learned something from last season that you figure you can keep more consistent throughout?
I think what I learned is I'm like the Sebastian Vettel to, all these Max Verstappens. um, like yeah, I felt like I was pretty strong at the early of last season, but a lot of folks have been putting in work and practicing and definitely, showing a lot more pace. So again, I don't know that I earned it today with kind of the unfortunate offs that folks had, but yeah, I'll definitely take it.
A win is a win, but we head back across to the States for a track familiar to most of you here in the league at Laguna Seca. I'm sure the familiarity should at least help there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Laguna Seca.
Well, again, congratulations with the victory. Who helped make this one possible?
Oh, definitely a shout out to the wife and kids for supporting me during my practice sessions instead of walking the dog and whatnot.
Awesome stuff. That was Dan Dwyer, our winner here today. And now DJ's caught up with Dave Anderson, who came oh so close.
Dave, I know that has got to be so tantalizing to be so close to Dan, but you put on a spectacular show at a very tricky track.
Oh, well, thanks. Anytime I can be even mentioned in the same conversation as Dan Dwyer, I'm pretty happy about it. So yeah, I felt great about it. It's a fun track. It's a fun track, and it will bite you. And I think that that was happening all over the track. But yeah, had a great time out there.
So I have to ask, when you take your approach to something like this that is a little bit more of an old school circuit, when you're coming into race mode and really focusing in, does it change the way you approach it and change the way you drive it as compared to driving something like Coda that you've got so much more room to, well, go off track?
Yeah, it's not very forgiving. There are a couple places here you can spin without sort of ending your race, but not many of them. It's kind of right in the final section. But yeah, you just got to be careful. I was really focusing on car control today, and every time I'd feel it doing something weird, I'd back off. If you if you watched, I clipped a lot of grass. I got loose in a lot of places, but it was all about controlling that, and that's kind of what I was focusing on today. And I got a nice lesson watching Dan as well do that.
Well, you did, and you were full of his mirrors for most of it. But then near the end of the race, you also had Kurt Pansgrau coming up on your gearbox. I have to say, in those closing stages, were you focused more ahead or behind at that point?
One eye on each. It kind of hurts my head right now. It was a tough one because I'm looking back and I know Kurt in practice was throwing down the best laps of anybody and qualified first. And he's just an animal when he gets out there. And I was like, okay, I've got a couple laps and a second and a half. I can stay ahead of him, but I can't make mistakes. And so that was tough. I also had Rick back there earlier on, who is probably faster than me on this track. But I was just again focused on not making mistakes, and that's the only way I was going to get through this one. No, not a whole lot of places to pass out here. You really just have to be patient, wait for somebody to do something wrong, and that's kind of what I was hoping with Dan, but no luck.
Well, we'll wish you luck on the next time out. But for this one, man, anybody you'd like to thank for this podium tonight?
Thanks, as always, to you guys. Thanks to Todd Curtis and the Flying Huskies for their continued support of this series, and for my mates at the Turn 2 Club. Thanks for you guys for always the great coverage. So appreciate it.
Of course, that was your second place finisher. And now we have caught up with Kurt Pansgrau.
Kurt, a third place, but after starting it on the pole, it has to feel at least a little bit disappointed. What happened at the very beginning of the race where Rick managed to get around you?
Oh, I was. At the start, I didn't time that right at all, and he got a pretty good run, and it was green, and I just said, okay, it's gonna let the tires, warm up, take it easy for a few laps, and and that didn't last long, and then I slid off the track at turn 8, I think, and just very fortunate I didn't hit the wall so that I could didn't have to go into the pit.
it did look like you were very much pushing at the end as you at times were snatching that fastest lap, although Rick Sheldon, I think, got it from you in the end. But then at times you started to fall away. Did you feel like you were overdriving the car at all in that?
Uh, yeah, at times I was, just losing focus and it just wasn't working well in the middle of the race. And then I got it together the last couple laps, and I wanted to try and get up with those guys to see if I could try one last ditch pass or something.
I guess the good news for you is, as I mentioned in the intro of the broadcast, that you only took a single victory, but you won the championship through consistency. So that's got to be encouraging, knowing you managed to podium here today.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate to get a podium after the way I raced to start with.
Sometimes you got to take what you can get. And who helped make this podium possible for you today?
The Flying Huskies for letting me come in race in their league. I appreciate it a lot.
That was Kurt Pansgrau, who took third place here today. And now we start to bring in the rest of the crew as DJ has pulled up some of them. DJ, who have you got with you?
Well, first and foremost, I want to talk to Rick Sheldon, who looked like he was in an absolute knockout fight with trying to set the fastest lap of the race with Kurt Pansgrau there.
That was fun, man. Kurt and I, hey, if race was won on pace, Kurt and I would have been P1 and 2. I guess Dave and Dan had pace and patience. So I guess we missed that part, Kurt.
Well, you were closing down in, and this, I guess, is for both Kurt and Rick there. We was kind of seesawing back and forth, and then Rick, it looked like you may have had a run on Kurt near the end of it. How close was that, and were you getting excited about it? Kurt, were you getting scared?
For me, I think that I didn't think I had a chance unless Kurt made a mistake. I never thought I got in closer than 2 seconds. So that wasn't it. My hope was that he was going to get close enough to Dave to get in his mirrors, and you never know at that point. I'm just going to sit there and hope for a little luck. I already made my fate a little earlier with a couple of turn, whatever that last. The one I don't want to ever think about again. Turn nemesis, we'll call it for me. The last right-hander before the start finish.
Well, if it makes you feel better, just about every corner on this track is my corner nemesis, so you're all good on that one, my friend. I want to turn to one of the new guys, Don. How do you find your first run out here with the Flying Huskies?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I put just kind of cobbled together a system. I was looking at my stats. The last time I raced on iRacing was 9 years ago. I had a system that I sold it 9 years ago, literally. So I just cobbled stuff together. It was a ton of fun. It was great.
And I'm assuming that means we can expect you back for the next rounds in this season.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, we very much look forward to seeing you. Joe?
I've caught up with Todd Curtis here, who seemed to have a bit of a rough one here today. I saw a little bit of consternation between you and Rick about an incident through Island Corner. Tell us a little bit about what happened.
Oh, yeah. I was actually a pretty solid race, just trying to keep it clean. There was a lot of action going on around me, so I just put my head down and was trying to drive. I saw Rick come up behind me, and I said, all right, great. Well, there's not a lot of space here, so we should be good. And I guess you could interpret it as opening the door. That's not how I interpreted it. But next thing I knew, Rick was up inside me in a place where there wasn't room for two cars. So I didn't want to crash. I wound up going off and crashing away, and that was the end of my race. So it looks like the rest of the guys had a good time out there. So, in the end, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But after a while, you want to make sure that everybody's doing everything cleanly and being aware of themselves and everybody else out there. So, we'll continue to work on that and learn as we go. But it's still a good time. This is a cool track. I enjoyed being on it. And next time, maybe I'll get a little bit more practice and hopefully get my system back together as well. I had to move my sim, so I'm on sort of a cobbled together system myself. But I think Don proved that didn't limit him in any way, so I shouldn't make it my excuse.
Hey, Todd, can I jump in? And I want to just say something there. First of all, Todd, I am sorry for us continuing to have this dance. We obviously have a lot in this universe we're tied to, and I never want to see that happen to any of my competitors. I do feel like what happened there, and I'll have to go back and look, is it did look like he kind of left the door open, and I did think there was room. But, we'll go look at the tape. But I didn't mean to put you in a bad spot, buddy.
Yeah, stuff happens. That's part of racing, and sometimes you take the chance and it goes well for one person and not the other.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see two really sportsmanlike competitors being able to talk it out afterwards. Guys, this was a fun one to watch your race. What is everybody's thoughts after tackling Oulton? Because this seems to be a bit of a sleeper track as one of the unknown difficulties on the world of iRacing.
For me, it's one of my favorite tracks. Early on, Dave and I got our sim rigs together at the same time. Actually, Steph Wilson, who you saw come out before, came out and helped us put ours together. And we went out to Oulton in the Indy cars, the old Indy Pro Mazdas, and we just love it. So I think that's why Dave, our race director, our fearless race director, decided to start us off there. It's just a fun, fast track.
Well, we had fun watching you guys race out there today. Thanks for coming in and talking to us. And I do believe that is going to wrap up our interviews for the evening. So we want to thank our sponsors for this series, starting off with Norsled. Save a Husky. For more information, contact Todd Curtis through email at todd@flyinghusky.racing. And of course, Flying Husky Racing. Find out more on the web at flyinghusky.racing. Flying Husky Racing. Track days are the best days. And Turn 2.0 Drivers Club. Have fun, be safe, and go faster. And finally, VSRS Motorsports. Contact Rick Sheldon to learn more. Cool people, cool cars, cool events. Thanks goes out to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to Jules Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support the channel, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. Link is in the description below. And don't forget to head on over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. The next race, as we mentioned, will be Laguna Seca, Tuesday, April 20th at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. But we also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. See you on the track.